Hello, we continue our study, Theater Appreciation, with Chapter 2. And in this, we compare the stage, which is where dramas are performed, versus the screen, which we mean movies, television, anything that we watch now. We watch almost everything from a screen. We're watching this right now from a screen. But we'll mostly be referring to movies versus theater. So, if you've been to a movie lately, I haven't because of COVID, they don't really encourage cell phones in there either, but it's particularly a no-no in live theater. Okay, it's distracting to not only audience members, which would be in a movie, but to the actors on stage who are live. In theater, you're considered an active participant. Your response is right there. They can hear you. They can see you. Even though you might be in the dark, if you laugh, or if you're really quiet, if you're talking, which you shouldn't be, or if your cell phone goes off. Those are things that all are part of the active experience of everybody in the stage or in the theater at that time, which is not the way it is in a movie. In a movie, it's not going to bother the actors one bit because they're not really there. Communication does flow both ways. Now, although the actors are doing most of the communicating, you as the receiver, if you studied your speech class, had this in speech class, are sending back communication as well. It can be nonverbal, it can be gasps, it can be it can be clapping, it can be laughter. There's all ways that we let them know we like what they're doing, maybe not so much, or that we're with them. It's a pure form of acting, and that's why a lot of really accomplished movie actors will go back and do some live theater to kind of really polish their acting, because it's that pure form of acting. It's where it all started. That moment belongs to you as well as to those actors. That performance, they may come back and perform again, but it will be unique to that moment. Unlike a movie, which will never change. You play it again, it's going to be the same thing, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Now, film and TV, on the other hand, film and TV are passive. You sit there and you just take it in. You might laugh, right? You might do something we tend to check out. That's one of the problems with having an online or virtual class, is sometimes we realize, I'm not really there, they're not really there, so we're passive. We get distracted. Are you distracted right now? Try to stay tuned in, because we're so passive and the communication flows in only one direction. In a virtual class, unless you actively participate and become passive, you won't get the benefit of having a live active class. Usually, though, you do know what you're getting for your time and money. They send, you can see a movie trailer, right? You see a little preview, and you kind of know. But with a play, they're not going to have a trailer. There's not going to be a little preview usually that you can see. That may start to change with video, but not usually the case. Right now, the acting is different, and I'm ready for my close-up is really the key thing here. So acting in film, because of close-ups, there's some things that are emphasized that are not emphasized on stage. On stage, you don't have close-ups. Wherever you sit in the theater, you see all the stage, you see whoever's on the stage, and you see them all equally. One might be a little further downstage and closer to you, and one further away. But in film, they frequently use a close-up where you only see one person and might be zoomed right into their face. And so this sort of what they call photographic charisma, they look good on the screen, is important. Not everybody has that. It's a hard thing to define. There's just some people that they have that, and that's what makes them a good actor or actress. Something else that's different in acting in film that you would know if you thought about it is it's often shot out of sequence. In a play, it starts at the beginning and moves toward the end, or it would be weird, We rehearse, by the way, I don't know if you know this, we rehearse out of sequence, at least initially, but a film can be shot out of sequence, which means this particular scene that you see first was not necessarily filmed first. They may shoot all the films that are in, let's say the setting is in Morocco, okay? Well, they don't want to be flying out there multiple times, so they'll film all the scenes that are set in Morocco. I like James Bond movies because they're out in these exotic locations. But all those ones that are in the studio with a certain costuming where they'll shoot those together. And so they group them according to things like that make sense for the studio, but not necessarily in order of how they'll be in the film. Another difference is that memorization is not as important. You only have to remember the scene that you're about to do. And it can be really short because it may just be doing the close-ups that day. You can go look at your script, you memorize 10 or 11 lines at a time, you do them, they film them, they shoot them, cut, we're done. If you make a mistake, no biggie, cut, do that over, right? You're allowed to fail, but not so in theater. Oh my goodness, Al Pacino, very famous actor you may be familiar with, but he's much older. He says we're tightrope walkers. When you walk the wire in a movie, the wire's painted on the floor. Easy peasy, right? That's no big deal. But when you walk it on the stage, it's 100 feet high without a net. Big difference. You're out there. You're hanging out there. You make a mistake, everybody sees it, and there's no fixing it. You forget your lines. It's just a different experience. William Dafoe. Acting for film is like a musician playing in a recording studio. Acting in the theater is like playing live in concert. So just a very different experience for the actors and a very different genre. So compared to the film actor, the actor who's on stage, they really have to have a lot more training. They don't have any body doubles, for them. They don't have to know how to, if their character is supposed to be playing the piano, they don't have to do that for film, y'all. You ever notice that they can show the close-up of somebody else's hands playing the piano? Or they can just show the headshot of you playing the piano and never show your hands. You don't have to have the same level of talent and training. In fact, you don't even have to be a good singer. They can dub your voice. They did that with The Greatest Showman on Earth. Love that musical movie. But one of the ladies that sings in it, it's a wonderful song. They didn't use her voice. They just thought, she just has an adequate voice. They wanted her, and they dubbed in somebody else's. So she didn't even have to have that musical talent. But on the stage, you're it. It's your voice, and you're acting, and you're doing the combat scenes, or you're doing the whatever it is, the choreography, the dancing, it's all you. Everything is a wide shot. They see all of you pretty much all the time. You have to, they don't get that close shot of your face. So to get across your emotion, you have to use your whole body. And buddy, you better be able to memorize. You have to know your play inside and out. You have to know their lines, not just your lines, because it's not just waiting until you speak. And you have to know the line that's precedes yours. You have to know the lines that come after and how many lines before it's your turn again. But you're really supposed to be acting, so it's supposed to, you got to know the scene quite well, and you can't get out there on the stage until you have really fully, those lines as if they were your own original thoughts and ideas. And every performance has to be performed equally well. There's no do-over. There's no cut. Try again. So a lot more on an actor in a live setting like that. Perhaps you never really considered that before, but if you've taken part in one, you know. There's a difference in the directing. So let me back up. We've started talking about how the experience with the audience is different because it's live. It's a different experience for the actor because it's live. And it's different from the point of view of a director. In theater, we consider it a playwright's medium. And medium means that they're the first and primary artist in this. They wrote the play. And so the director knows that, legally you can't change the script unless there's been like 70 years that have gone since their death, the playwright's death. I worked as a position called a dramaturg, which is a researcher for play at Auburn University in Montgomery a few years back. And fortunately, playwright was a young lady. She was alive. It was a new play. And so we were able to contact her. There were a few things that the director wanted to change, but he had to get her permission. It's her script. And so we have to respect that. Also, the director gives all the directions, and the director's in charge until the play starts, and then the actors do their thing. You can't get up on the stage and say, "Stop! That wasn't the way you're supposed to do it." You can't. You might have to do that in a kindergarten production because people start wandering away, right? But not in a real live theater. But whereas with film, the director's in charge, and the stop, cut, that's not what we want to do it this other way. They're always in charge. But not, they have a particular role they play in theater. It's an important role, and all of them are, but it's limited. And the director has to work collaboratively. That means with. You work with what the playwright has given you. You work with the cast of actors that you cast and chose there, but they have to bring their artistry to it, and you have to work with designers that help you with the lighting and the sound and the set and the costuming and the makeup and everything that goes into it. So the exception would be if you were the one man or one woman show, but even then, you got someone running your lights and your sound and helping you know some things. So it's very rare that there's any exception. Theater is really a collaborative art. In film, the director is always in charge. I mentioned that before. It's the director's medium. Yeah, there's a script, but I'll just tell you, in film, they buy the rights to a story and then they make it whatever, and they just hire people to go, hey, write me a screenplay, for this. And many times, not always, the director, may do both. Now, in the olden days, the director in theater, the director might also be the playwright, but that's not how it's been in recent years. The director exerts absolute control over every shot. They tend to be the solitary authority. What they say goes. Now, it's still collaborative. It takes a lot of people. If you've ever seen the credits run for movies, golly, there's just, the list goes on and on, right? But the director calls the shots, and they're in control. And if they're like, nope, don't like it like that, do it this way. And they can look through the camera and see what's just been filmed and decide whether that's the way they wanted it to go or not. All right, so we talked about the audience experience, how it's different for the actors, how it's different in terms of the role of the director and the power that the director has. But it's also very different for the funding. These things cost a lot of money and they take a lot of time. And so for the screen, we're thinking film and TV and all those things that qualify as shows, right? Netflix and so forth. Obviously, ticket sales for movies. We know we have to pay for the movies. If we're going to go see them in a theater, like a cinema. But we have to pay for subscription to Netflix or a cable subscription to HBO or however we access the movies that we want to see. I don't know if you remember DVD rentals are getting to be a thing of the past. There's still some Redbox places around the CVSs that I go to where you can rent a DVD. And so initially they sell them, right? They stream them, they make them available in these other secondary sources like Hulu and Netflix, Disney Plus now, these people that run them. And that creates some funding, some secondary thing other than the box office. But they also get it from advertising. Now you can see advertising when you watch regular TV with ads, but sometimes it's built right into the movie. Like this scene, I'm trying to remember, you could see Matt Damon in it. I'm trying to remember which movie this was. But look at the two. This is the product ads here. There's a term. I hope we can come up with that here in a second. All right, and just remember that this is just highlights. I'm trying to fill in as much as I can. But the best thing to do always is to kind of have your book available to kind of see and make sure you get the terms. The term here is product placement, since it's very common in Hollywood movies and television, and you may not even know it. It's very subtle. This movie is the movie Syriana with Matt Damon and Amanda Peet. And while you can't see what brand of orange juice, you definitely can see the cereal box. It's placed very prominently. You can't mistake it. It's there. You may not have thought about it, but they pay a lot of money. Our book tells us it's becoming so big that in 2015, corporations paid more than $15 billion, people, to have their products strategically located within a shot. This is a shot, a movie shot, camera shot. or weaved into a storyline, and we feel like they're going to keep doing that. So it's the brands, whatever, but they're not going to do that for free. 75% of all product placement money does go to television, but we get this as well. And ads generate a lot of money. Monday Night Football, a 30-second ad was going for about $400,000. Sunday Night Football, even more, $600,000, because people are going to see it. Now, even though we can walk away from our screen, right, people are still influenced. They're spending a lot of money. So a lot of money is generated by product placement, as well as the other sources. So there's a lot of revenue streams, as they're called, for films and TV, but not so much for theater. Ticket sales, account for about 60%. And if you've ever tried to go to like a big Broadway show, they're very expensive. You're talking about $50 to $100 easily, but they go right up there with some of the big ticket items for sporting events as well. If you go to a local, you might get into more between $17 and $30. If you go to a school show, it's going to be less, maybe 10 or 12. You can get student tickets, by the way, to local UAB, Sanford, Birmingham Southern. When they start cranking up their seasons again, you can get the student price with your student ID, of course, and those are going to run cheaper, like in your $8 to $10. If there are any that are coming on that we can get in for free, I try to post that in an announcement, and we've had those partnerships in the past. They're not for profit. They're not trying to make money, but they're trying to sustain themselves. And ticket sales count for 60%. That's an average. Concessions, if they have concessions, that should be whatever. Red Mountain Theater sells concessions with theirs. Part of the challenge of funding theater is that it is a live medium. It's very labor intensive. You've got a lot of people involved, and it's live, so you can't just do it once, record it, and then just sell it. It just doesn't work like that. So sometimes there are grants that are from different resources that can help, corporate funding, but federal grants, state, local. I know the Alabama Coalition for the Arts will have some. The National Endowment for the Arts is a federal source. They'll offer grants, but you have to meet the grants qualifications. Sometimes they're very specific, like you have to do certain types of theater. I know Alabama Power, that's a corporate sponsor that donates to Red Mountain Theater Company and to the Alabama Humanities Association. There's just different resources, but then they're very specific. And so sometimes you can get private donors, but they're going to want to, donate and fund things that are, of high quality and have a good reputation. So, how do you get started? So it's just tricky, but that's just the nature of it. So if you wonder why they cost so much, it's because they can't make the money like the movies and television shows and so forth can. And it's just the way it is. Okay, so who controls the strings? Follow the money, that tells you a lot. But some interesting things, and this is in our chapter 2 assignment, which comes out of this. Theater doesn't have all the constraints. They have the constraint of, limited funding, but screen entertainment is really trying to make money, so they put the values of the audience foremost, like what do they want? Okay, that's not necessarily bad, but theater, because it's art, tends to value the voice of the artist, who may be trying to say some things that the community doesn't want to hear. But here's the thing, they're freer to do that. They're less constrained. Commercial theater, also known as bourgeois theater, because it's for the masses, and independent filmmaking will try to do both. They'll try to let something be artistic and be appealing there. But who controls the content? According to our book, and this may be a little out of date, depending on the things that I have talked to students about, there have been movements to change this, but for a long time, most Hollywood screen entertainment companies were owned by just a few very large multinational corporations. In 1975, about 50 corporations owned 90% of all American entertainment, which was everything from books and magazines and movies, televisions, and newspapers. Just a few years ago, that number was down to 6. And these multinational corporations, called media moguls, tend to have a monopoly. They control everything. And so, it's happening in the news, where more news outlets are owned by just a few organizations or corporations, and just limits that. Most theater is less commercialized, more local and locally controlled, but and that's an advantage there because they can speak truth and they can kind of go to what's local, than satisfying the needs of a corporate group. And so your assignment is, and I'm not pulled that up right now, but just to overview it is, you're going to just take a movie that you like. Okay, let's do a movie. You could do a TV show, but it works a little better with a movie, whatever the instructions say there. And you got to do some research, right? You got to find out what is its income stream. Okay, that's again where movies are more helpful. What are the income stream? What's the box office? What did it bring into the box office when it came out? Is it released on video? Are there any little toys, right, linked to it? But who owns it? And you got to keep going backwards until you get to like the top. So, for example, something might be put out by DreamWorks, but DreamWorks isn't a subsidiary of, somebody else, right? And is it Time Warner? Is it Disney? Is Disney still, is that the top of the chain? Is it Disney, or is it someone own Disney? How far back does it go? MGM Studios, who owns that? You may have something that you like that goes back to an individual, and how do they fund that? Like, how are they able to be that one person or that small group that owns, what they have and owns control over it? So that's your assignment, and you get to kind of pick on some movie there that you really like and do some little investigation. Couple of things on ownership, and we'll keep this within a half an hour here. Copyright is a big deal, okay? Copyright is a big deal for artists all the way across the board. There's some specific things that pertain to theater. It's a legal guarantee that's granted by the government that allows creative artists to maintain control and profit from their work. That's why plagiarism is a big deal. If someone's published that and they've got their name on it, and they wrote it, and they came up with the ideas, and they researched it, we have to credit that. And some things are protected, so we can't go and steal, their stuff and copy it. And, you're not allowed to go to the movie theater and take your phone out and start, recording the movie. And you're not supposed to do that during a play either. If it's just a school program, obviously they let parents do that. That's not a big deal. But did you know that for plays to be produced, there are almost always royalty payments? I didn't know that until I was a school director, and I would order a script and I'd have to pay for the copies of the script, but I'd also have to pay the company that had it a royalty payment. And I'd have to agree to, I had to get special permission to, if we were going to video it or allow anybody to video it, if we were going to change anything, we weren't allowed to. And it was several $100s, but if you were going to do a big show like they do, Broadway or something, it's a lot more than that. And the fee goes to the playwright for the rights to produce their play. That's their income stream. They've written that play. How do they get paid? You have to pay a royalty payment. Then there's this thing I alluded to earlier, a public domain. Once a playwright, that's the person who wrote the play, that player has been dead for 70 years, his or her plays become public property. No more royalty payment, no more asking permission. So that's why you can see Shakespeare plays done all sorts of ways. You can do it synchronous or a play, however you want. Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen can be produced without that. You can find them PDFs, on the internet, and you can do it. You can change it if you want. That's different though from in screen. Screenwriters are writers for hire. And as soon as they sell their TV show, script, or the film, they don't have any other payments. They get just paid straight up for the script that they wrote. So it's different. Okay, like I promised, the curtain call here and getting in with less than 30 minutes. Screen entertainment tends to view its audience as about, like, we'll give them what they want to buy and what it does as a product. I don't know if you've noticed this lately, but there hasn't been a lot of original movies. There's some, obviously, thankfully. There's a lot of remakes, a lot of sequels, a lot of, hey, let's keep it going. And that's okay. I mean, if it's a good movie or a good series, James Bond, like that, keep making more. The Avengers, right? Marvel Comics. You get these trilogies like Lord of the Rings, and then you do The Hobbit, the prequels, and you got Hunger Games. And if we're buying, they're selling, okay? Theater tends to view its audiences as equal participants in the theater experience and what happens as artistic production. So it's a more high-minded, yes, and there are reasons, and they're not just trying to crank out a buck. They're doing something that has a significant meaning to the performers, and they hope that has significant meaning to its audience members. Well, I hope that helps you understand the significant differences between theater and film, or the screen, TV, and all that goes into it that makes it different and not just the same. And don't forget to take your quiz.